gonna have to have parents are gonna have to go get it. And when she said that part about the bones, this kid raised his hand, and he's like a really creepy kid. And he was like, well, what if I shoot you? Like, hold up. What? You threatened to shoot a teacher? So I just like looked at him and I scooped my desk away, and the whole class went silent. Like nobody said anything. We were all just staring at him. Like we were all just in shock. Like, did he just threaten to shoot a teacher? After like 10 seconds of it being like completely silent, he reached in his backpack. After he said he was going to shoot somebody with a gun. Dad in the class went into full-on panic. The kid sitting across from us tackled into the ground, and Miss Bauer was able to grab his backpack and get it away from him, and somebody else like ran down to the office super quick and got the police officer to come and get him. It was so scary. The whole school was in lockdown, and they wouldn't tell us if he had a gun or not. Like, they just wouldn't tell us. We were all just like wondering, and people were crying and like texting their parents. Oh my gosh, it was the worst. Anyways, I get an email 3 hours after school gets out. They're like, well, he didn't have a gun. He was just kidding around. But we're going to take disciplinary measures. Like, disciplinary measures? You know, that could be put in jail. But yeah, so he didn't have a gun, and I'm really grateful for that. Just so you know, it's not okay to threaten anybody.
Located in a cemetery in Vermont, there is a grave with a window to peek inside. This grave belonged to a man named Timothy Clark Smith. Timothy had a fear of being buried alive. This may seem like an irrational fear, but it was actually more common than people realize. Timothy patented a design for his own gravesite. Not only did he include a window on his tombstone, he also built a contraption that included a bell. In the case that Timothy woke up underneath the ground, he could pull a string and ring the bell to signal for help. Timothy passed away on Halloween in 1893, and he never needed to use the bell. The window to his grave is still there, although the visibility to see inside of it is very low after the years. But I can't imagine being a gravekeeper, hearing a bell ringing in the middle of the night, knowing that you are the only one there.
This is why you should never go on a subway again. So what happened is that one night, a teenage girl was taking the subway home from work back to her house in New York. Scary part is when she went on board, she sat directly across from two men with a woman sitting in the middle. The creepy part is that the woman kept staring at her and wouldn't even blink, while the two men never once looked at her. Well, at the next stop, a man with a trench coat walked in, but the girl didn't pay much attention to him. The girl kept trying to look away so that one lady wouldn't stare at her, but she just kept looking, wouldn't even blink. Well, at the next stop, that random man with the trench coat pulled out the teenage girl and dragged her out of the subway. She was screaming, asking for help, because she had no idea why this guy just pulled her out. But the guy told her to calm down and said he actually saved her life because the woman that was staring at her was actually dead, and the two men next to her were holding her up to make her look alive. The random guy with the trench coat said if he didn't pull her out, she was going to be their next victim.
This is why you should never ask too many questions. Once there was an old lady who was widowed and wheelchair bound, living in a house with 2 floors with her caretaker. One day, the police received a call from this old lady's house. The caretaker had been murdered. One detective was sent to investigate, where he found the caretaker's body on the 1st floor, vocal cords ripped out, lying in a pool of blood. The old lady was ruled out as a suspect because she was immobile, but the detective did note that this crime seemed familiar to how the widowed husband died years ago. He had suffocated in his sleep on the couch downstairs when the old lady was upstairs. After getting evidence from the first floor crime scene, the detective asked to look upstairs as well. The old lady refused at first, but he insisted and went up anyways. Everything seemed pretty normal until a shocking revelation came over him, and it sent chills down his spine. It was a detail that investigators had overlooked in the murder of the widow's husband as well. There is no phone on the second floor. The detective then suddenly heard a noise, withdrew his weapon, and ran out of the room, only to find an empty wheelchair.
These TikTokers accidentally found a body. There's a popular app right now on TikTok called Randonautica that sends you to random locations in your area. Some people find random abandoned places. Some people even found random weird things in the forest. These group of teens were led to a suitcase. But the thing is, when they opened the suitcase, it was a dead body inside. When they opened the suitcase with a stick, it had a horrible stench, later calling the cops, who confirmed there was dead body parts inside.
This is why you should never talk to strangers in an elevator. One day, a surgeon was working the night shift at a hospital. He just finished his operation on a patient and was going to the basement. He entered the elevator, and there was one other woman already inside. They were casually chatting when the elevator door opened and another woman was about to enter. But the surgeon looked horrified. He quickly slammed the close button and punched the highest floor of the building. Surprised, the woman asked why he was being so rude and wouldn't let the other woman in the elevator with them. The surgeon explained that in this hospital, all patients wear white wristbands with their names printed on them, but the red wristbands are placed on all of the corpses. The surgeon then looks to the woman in the elevator with him and says, "That was the same woman I just operated on. She died on the operating table. Didn't you see the red wristband she was wearing?"
This is why you should always lock your front doors. A kid living with both of his parents decided to watch a movie for their family weekly movie night. He then gets up to use the restroom. As he is in the restroom, he sees all of the power in the house cuts off, and then he hears two loud thumps. He locks the bathroom door and hears heavy objects being dragged across the hallway. The kid, freaking out, runs out of the bathroom and runs into the restroom. Once he is inside the room, he locks the door. As he locks the door, he jumps in bed and acts like he's asleep in hopes that this person who is in the house will ignore a child sleeping. He closes his eyes and hears the door creak at the same time. He squints his eyes and sees a man with no eyes dragging the bodies of both of his parents. The man dragging his parents sits his mom's dead body in a chair facing him, and then sets the dad's body on the floor facing up.
Years old. So basically, we had so many candles in the house, I guess just because my mom was obsessed with candles. I was also obsessed with fire. So every time I seen the candle, I would put my finger in the fire. And no, it didn't hurt me whatsoever. I guess it was just amusing to me. And everybody called me a pyro. So one day I was scrolling on Musical.ly, and on like the Feature Me page, I saw something with a candle. And it was like how to make your own candle or something like that. But you had to make your own candle out of a candle. So I went into my room and I closed my door, and like the first step was melting the candle all the way. So I lit the candle and then I put a piece of paper in there. I don't know why I did, but I did. And the fire started getting so big, so I lifted the piece of paper and I threw it on my rug. And I didn't want to get in trouble for fire on the floor, so I just left my room and left it alone. And I kid you not, just a couple minutes later I hear the smoke detector going off. And my older brother screaming. I'm running out of time like for part 2. Part 2 of how I burned down my entire house at just 8 years old. So continuing on with the story, after I hear the smoke alarms going off and my brother screaming, I knew exactly what I did. And I blamed it all on my brother. And to this day, they still think it's my brother. Even though it was in my room, but my family believed whatever I said. Anyways, the whole back side of the house was on fire, and we all rush out of the house. And of course, my mom takes care of it. I'm pretty sure she called 911. Well, duh. Sadly, our 2 cats, 2 bunnies, and 4 hamsters were in the house. And our bird, but our bird was getting ready to pass anyways. I'm not sure how, but the house caught on fire so quickly, and the entire thing just blew up into flames. There might have been something else that the fire triggered to make it more big, I guess. I don't really know how to word that. But we ended up raising enough money to move to a different house because we lost every single one of our belongings. When the house burned down, there was only one wall standing, and it was the wall of pictures of my grandma who passed 10 years ago.
Time! So yesterday my friends and I all went to the fair, and there were 6 of us in total. And none of us wanted to have to worry about driving there and parking, so we just Ubered instead. So we left the fair around 11:15 and we walked to a nearby shopping center where the Uber picked us up about 10 minutes late. We ended up leaving at 11:30. We get in the Uber, the man says hello, and we head home the normal way. Everything's fine. And my parents don't like when I Uber, so they were tracking me on Life 360 from the moment I got in the car. After about 10 minutes in, I get a text from my mom, and it said, "Where are you?" I look up from my phone and I realize I have no idea where we are, and Ubers know their directions, they know how to take you home. We were 20 minutes out of the way. So I'm terrified. My mom's texting me nonstop, literally about to call the police. I'm gonna run out of time, but posting part 2 today. Okay, back to the Uber story. Our parents are freaking out, we're texting each other in our group chat so he doesn't hear us. Also, while this is all happening, he wasn't talking to us, but he had an earbud in, and he was talking to someone on the phone really quietly. It was super creepy. My mom starts calling me again, and he hears the ring. And one of my friends pulled up on her phone the directions to get home, which he also heard, so he knew that we thought something was off. After a little while longer, we finally know where we are, so we feel a little bit better. We were getting really close to the turn that goes into my friend's neighborhood, and we were thinking, if he doesn't make this turn, we're screwed. Thank goodness he makes a turn and we're back at my friend's house. But the scary thing is what if he was planning something, but since our phones were ringing and we had the GPS up, that he changed his mind.